Okay, good evening. We'll call to order the regular monthly meeting of the City of Helotes Planning and Zoning Commission. It's June 6th at 7 p.m. Ask for the commission secretary to please call the roll.
Joe Edmond,
Here.
Ron Haza, Greg Michelle,
Here?
Richard Hawk,
Here.
Mario Reyes,
Here?
Jeff Wade,
Here.
Jason Whiting,
Here.
and Mike McLaughlin.
Mike is not here, and we have with us from city staff, the city administrator, Rick Schroeder, and from council, Alex Blue and Ed Villanueva. We will turn first tonight to the public hearing to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on a request by Helotes Town Center for approval of a specific city council approved use permit for a restaurant with drive-through on property zoned B3 General Business District, 9708 Business Parkway in Helotes. We will open the public hearing at 7:01, and I would invite at this time forward anyone who wishes to address the commission on this item.
You can do the presentation during the item.
We'll wait for the, you're here for that particular item. Are you representing the property owner of the business? Okay. So hang on until we actually formally get to the item. This is really for the public and citizens. And one last time, if there's anyone here on that item, please come forward. And there isn't anyone, so we will close the public hearing at 7:01. And we will circle back to that in a couple minutes. Number 4 on our agenda is citizens to be heard. Rick, I don't believe we have any signed up separately, so we can move to discussion and action on the minutes of the regular meeting that we held as a commission May 2nd, 2017. Should have found the material, the minutes in your materials. If you have any edits or corrections, this would be the time to bring them to our attention, or we can have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the minutes be approved as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is to approve the minutes as submitted for the May 2nd, 2017 meeting. All in favor, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These the minutes are approved. There you go. All right, item 6 tonight is discussion and action on a request by Helotes Town Center for approval of a specific city council approved use permit for a restaurant with drive-through on property zone B3 9708 Business Parkway. Now we have a representative here. Rick, did you want to introduce this item at all?
Certainly. What we're talking about here, Chairman, is the end of Helotes Town Center's, or the end cap of Helotes Town Center's retail center. You see included in packets, Suite 128 is the restaurant that we're referring to. Included on your dais, I did receive from the engineers or architects today the proposed drive-through site plan. It's actually the site plan over the entire development, but it does include the drive-through, drive aisle abutting the existing daycare that's there. Staff has reviewed this, and we are recommending approval.
And did you have, sir, a presentation you wanted to make or to show us? Please, if you would just come on up to the mic and tell us your name and put your business address on the record.
I'm Tom Rohde. I office at 11503 Northwest Military Highway. I actually bought the land 10 years ago and built the shopping center about 6-7 years ago. We think we've been very good residents of Helotes. We originally designed the end of the center, which has been the hardest to lease because it sits so far back. We designed it with a drive-through when we originally did the project, which its setbacks to the parking, the drive aisles were architecturally compatible. We should have known about the ordinance for the drive-through window prior to submitting our plans, but we submitted our plans, got a building permit, and only recently became aware of the need for this public hearing. My fault, I should have known better, but we did the drive-through with the Taco Bell, I don't think we had to come back on an ordinance on that, but it's my fault. I have the tenant here who's just opened, they've been open about 2 months, about 2 weeks. They're doing okay. A drive-through will probably increase their business 25 to 30%, especially in the morning. So I'd like you to listen to my tenant and bear with us on not getting that variance when we needed it and grant it to us today.
Good
Hi,
evening.
good evening. My name is Carmen Salas, and we're right now the owners of the Dagoberto's Mexican food, and we would like to have a drive-through. We know that most of our customers would like to have one. We used to have another business, so most of our customers use the drive-through, so we know that we will have a good. We know that we will have a lot of customers here too, using the drive-through.
While you're up here, I'd like to have the commission have an opportunity to ask questions about
Yeah.
it. Usually is helpful for us, so I would open it up, and if there are questions.
I have a question. Could you please address the traffic flow and there any safety issues?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Could you please address the traffic flow for your drive-through?
Yeah, I mean, you all can work together, and maybe, Rick, would you mind putting the image up on the screen that might help orient everybody?
When the center was designed, it's almost at the end of a cul-de-sac. There's really very little traffic in this area of Business Parkway. Most of the traffic comes in and out of the Walmart main drive, which comes on the Business Parkway. Let me wait for your picture to come up. This is the far end of the shopping center. Most of the traffic that comes into the center comes in right where those two big spaces are. The Mexican restaurant's on the far side. Next to that is a daycare center. We're a very good distance away from the daycare center. We expect the traffic to come in and go around the Marco's Pizza in the back, where you can stack up 10, 15 cars if needed. It would come back out and either go out the side drive or come back out the main drive. The side drive is backed by the daycare, and there's very little traffic back there except when they're dropping off kids in the morning and afternoon. So, and Business Parkway does not carry very much traffic.
Can you, maybe stay up there, Mr. Odie, maybe using the mouse, can you highlight, Rick, where the entry points are for that strip? Or a pointer or something?
Use the laser. Use the laser right there. Use the laser, the green button to show. It'll help them.
Can I do it on this? This shows the Walmart.
If you could do it up there, it'd be a lot easier, just so everybody can see. So
This shows the Walmart. This is the main drive into Walmart. It's actually our main drive into our shopping center. So you can come in this way, or you can come in from Walmart and go in the center, go around, come back out, and there's a side entry there, or then go out through the main entry. So it sits way far back from Walmart.
Yeah, the site plan is on the dais in front of the commission.
So it looks like, if I have it right, there's the entry point that is directly across from the Walmart parking lot. But there's also another one as well over by the daycare. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Okay. The back, all right, so, okay. So if you have to drive around the structure, the building, to
Around the
loop
back of the
behind
shopping
the
center.
back of the building.
And this is very common these days where shopping centers are much smaller. The restaurants are trying to go on an end cap of the drive-through, and it saves a lot of cost for trying to build a freestanding restaurant. So this is quite common.
And if I could ask, Ms. Salas, the hours that you'll be keeping of the drive-through, what hours will the restaurant drive-through be open?
It will be morning lunch. And
7:30?
Yeah, from 7:30
7:30?
to 11 midnight, to 11.
11 p.m.
7 days a week?
Yeah.
And this is a very small restaurant. This is not a McDonald's or Taco Bell. This is more of a mom and pop.
You have
cafe.
seating inside, customer seating, how many,
35? 35 seatings.
anybody else?
When the drive-through happens, is there, if there's a long line, there's room for cars to move up and park
You
safely?
you can stack way back behind the center. You could probably stack 20 cars plus. But there's plenty, if you wanted to move them up faster and not deliver yet, there's plenty of room there. There's three parking stalls.
Actually, Mr. Rhodey, this is the one I think you were trying to show us, the overall site plan, and it actually looks like if this is constructed according to this plan, there's actually a little bit of maybe a row of bollards or a small curb that kind of makes a queue adjacent to that building. Is that actually been constructed like that?
Can you show me on the?
No, it's just like that right there, it's flat.
There's like a little,
It doesn't have that curve.
looks like there's a little something right there on the outside of the building. Yeah.
I don't believe that's
It's
there, though.
designed for a drive-through lane.
I don't believe that curb is there.
No, it's not there. That's the drive-through that we're planning to install. I mean, we could put a curb there or not put a curb there. We'll probably just stripe it.
Okay. But it looks like there's sort of an extra lane such that there's,
You can have
pass
you can
around
have a
it.
bypass lane.
yeah, you can bypass.
And we have a
around.
fire lane too, we've got to keep clear.
For the city administrator, I gather we will need to see a proposal for signage for the drive-through.
Yeah, menu board was not presented with this submittal.
So that'll be, I guess, forthcoming next month or.
And we got to
next
come
meeting.
back in for that, I
Yeah,
think.
is this, are they gonna just come up to the window and place the order? and
No,
get their food
there'll
right
be a
there?
stack up behind it, and we'll have a menu board back in the corner.
There will be a menu
You can
board,
order, then you come up to the
microphone.
window, just like a regular fast food restaurant.
Is there two-way traffic on that backside? The two-way traffic on the backside?
There's room for two-way traffic, but it's also a fire lane too, so it's much wider.
And there's no pedestrian traffic in there?
There's no pedestrian back here, except for Carnival.
So the applicant will need to return at a later date for the menu board when that's ready. Other questions or perhaps a motion? Thank you all for answering the questions. Jason,
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
read it out if you don't mind.
Sure. Oops.
Thank you.
Hang on.
And Commissioner, this is a recommendation to council item.
Okay. Lost it, hang on. It's right here. It was number 6, right? 6, okay. So
It's a
motion-
recommend approval to council.
Okay, so we'd like to make a motion to recommend to approval for city council, the request by Helotes Town Center for approval of a specific city council-approved use permit for a restaurant and drive-through in the property zone, General Business District B3, located at 9708 Business Parkway, Helotes, Texas, more particularly described as BCAD Property ID number 1189831.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was Mario. Mario? Any discussion of the motion, Jason, Mario, or anyone else? So the motion is to recommend approval to council of the request by Helotes Town Center for approval of a specific city council-approved use permit for a restaurant with drive-through on property zoned B3 located at 9708 Business Parkway. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. And this will go before city council on what date, Rick?
Thursday.
Thursday, 2 days from now, Thursday, June 8th. June 8th. Thank you all for being here. Sure thing. We'll move to item 7 tonight, which is discussion and action on a request by Visa Wash for approval of a conceptual design plan for a vacuum bay facility with a previously approved full-service car wash to be located on a 1.33 acre lot within the Bandera Oaks subdivision located generally near the intersection of Bandera Road, State Highway 16, and Cedar Trail. This includes site plan, structure design, and signage. And you all recall, we had talked about this May or April, one of those. Did you want to introduce this, Rick?
Yes, staff did review the site plan, the building design, and the menu board that is presented. Staff is okay with the site plan, and actually, the site plan was included within P and Z's approval at the last meeting.
Right.
But we are okay with the design, particularly with the amount of rock and on the main structure of the building and the standing seam metal roof. I believe, and we have a representative here, it looks like this is going to be a galvalume or some sort of metallic look, just like the roof is. The sign, however, or the menu board, doesn't really comply with any category that we have within our code of ordinances. The sign is not a menu board, because a menu board in our code of ordinances is only applicable to restaurants. The proposed sign is 108 square feet. If it was considered a wall sign, which is probably the closest signage that would fit, the max of that signage would be 42 square feet, because it's 1 square foot per linear foot of the structure, and the structure is 42 foot wide. Therefore, it's about 66 square feet too large, in accordance with the code. Also, the number of signs for this type of development, you're only allowed 1 wall sign per business, if you will. And if you recall, the commission approved the wall sign on the front and the rear of the building at the prior commission hearing. This isn't, however, atypical of any wash tub that you've ever seen. It's actually very representative of how Wash Tub does business. You pull into the vacuum bay, you look up and you pick the type of wash that you want. So I don't believe that they're asking for anything that they haven't received in other cities. As such, this would be a recommendation item for a variance to City Council. It is on Council's agenda on Thursday, and because it isn't atypical from a wash tub, and I believe we've all been to wash tub and seen this, staff is recommending approval of this item, particularly since they were willing to work with us on the building aesthetic. But again, this would be a variance to the sign code, and it would have to be a recommendation item for council.
I'd ask the rep who's here tonight to come up. Thank you, sir. And start by just asking the city administrator, does that variance, do they actually formally need to request it, or we're okay on our own as the body to recommend the variance?
Yes.
Because they've not applied for a variance.
They haven't applied for the variance, but they weren't necessarily told that they needed to apply for a variance. So when we reviewed this, we realized that it did need a variance, and that's why we placed it on both agendas. Essentially, we'll catch up to them when they come in to pull their actual wall permit for the variance fees and all of those sorts of
Okay,
things.
very good. Welcome back. Name and business address.
My name is
please.
Rick Algie. I work for Visa Wash.
Great.
Wash Tub Car Wash is 2208 Northwest Loop 410, San Antonio, Texas, 78230.
Thanks, and if you would just address the materials of the structure, just to
The
confirm what
material,
you said.
the material of the structure for the vacuum
Yeah.
structure is a hot dip galvanized steel structure. So it's not painted, it's hot dip, so it lasts forever. It's galvalume in color to match what's already going on the main structure of the car wash, which is a galvanized R-panel roof. And the same roof applies to this. It's a R-panel galvalume roof.
And it's 3 bays, correct?
It's 3 bays. It's 42 foot wide and 18 something deep.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Ron?
The menu board, is that facing the street?
Yes, sir. And the reason for the size is if you get 3 or 4 cars deep waiting to enter, waiting to get up to the vacuum, we make it that large so that you can read the menu board further back and make the decision, because we have ticket writers with handheld computers that are approaching the customer way before they get to that structure. So that's why the size, the 28, I think it's 27 wide by 4 foot tall.
Mr. Chair, but this vacuum bay, it's not right off the street of Bandera Road, it's pushed in, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It's, if you can imagine the way the building's laid out, it's, half the width of it is to the rear of the building, so we're way past halfway of the building. We're probably in the rear third of the property.
Just for
Chairman.
reference, If you're driving down Bandera Road and you have a straight shot, can you see the signs from there? Can you make out the words, or is it's still,
No.
you can do it when you get in?
You can get, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mario,
you.
there's the, site plan right there.
And remember that the building's gonna block it from the left side coming down the road, the main, since it's sitting in there. And on the right side, we have the mini storage facility that's gonna cover it up. So the only time you'll have visibility of that sign is if you're directly in front of the facility.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
And cars will typically queue up in each lane.
Yes, sir. And that-
Not single file.
No, sir. And that's what the ticket riders are doing.
They're directing.
They're out there kind of getting everybody, and people are finicky about, I was here before that car, so they're trying to get everybody lined in there correctly.
Joe?
I know we went through this before, but can you just describe for us the traffic flow in and out?
Yes, sir.
Laser.
So that all the vehicles will enter from the drive. They'll come around, they'll come in here, and then at this point, they kind of split up. And it'll hold 3 cars. So there's 3 cars being vacuumed at a time. And then directly behind them, depending on the volume of cars that day, they will start queuing behind there. So, you'll have one here, one behind there. It just really depends on weather and volume.
And the outflow?
Oh, the outflow, I'm sorry. The outflow, so basically you get out of the vehicle here, the customer would go inside the lobby there. Our employees take over, vacuum the car, drive around, and come onto the conveyor. They get out of the car, the automated car wash takes it through the tunnel. It's pushed out of the conveyor and it's held on this little pad until our employee gets back in it. And then depending on what type of service you purchased, it kind of depends on how the car is parked after that. So I'm not the operations guy, but what I've seen in the past is the cars that are getting the quicker service will be staged right here. So you'll start seeing a few cars stacked in here where they're having the faster services. The services that need more time, that are getting more added services, they'll stack back over here a couple of cars. And then, of course, if they're getting detailed, they will come out of the car wash and take a hard right, come back around outside and enter the detail structure down here, if they're getting waxes and longer services. But we typically, the 20-minute in and out is kind of our goal. Again, it depends on flow of, volume of cars and things like that. So the vehicles that are sitting up here, even if it's the quicker service or the little bit extended service, there shouldn't be on property more than 20 to 30 minutes.
And once the customer get their car, they go out on
Yes, sir.
Bandera Road?
So their car would be sitting out
I'm
here.
sorry, I'm gonna interrupt the discussion. I want to try to keep us on task here. So we're getting a little far afield of the vacuum bay. I think we got the idea of the flow into the vacuum bay. We've already dealt with the other piece, so I'd like to keep us focused on that. So any other questions about the vacuum bay? All right, thank you, sir. So
Yes, sir.
we can have a motion at this point. This is, remember, a recommend to council or recommend variance to council, and it is already on council's agenda for this week.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to recommend,
Yes.
and I will read it. Request by Visa Wash,
Sorry, interrupt you, Mario.
Yes.
What are we recommending? Recommending the variance or,
recommending what city staff has recommended, the variance of the sign code?
Okay.
Is that correct?
yes,
Yes, sir. By Visa Wash, Inc., DBA The Wash Tub, for approval of a conceptual design plan for a vacuum bay facility within a previously approved full-service car wash to be located on 1.333 acre lot described as Lot 3, Block 2 within the Bandera Oaks subdivision, located generally near the intersection of Bandera Road and Cedar Trail and formerly addressed as 12440 Bandera Road, Helotes 78023, including but not limited to the following: site plan, structure design, and signage.
is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Richard. Is there further discussion of the motion? Mario, Richard? Anyone? I would just like to thank Visa Wash for the thorough presentation both months. It's very helpful to us to understanding the intent and working with you all on this. The motion is to recommend approval of a variance to City Council on the request by Visa Wash for approval of a conceptual design plan for a vacuum bay facility within the previously approved full-service car wash on 1.33 acre lot within the Bandera Oaks subdivision located generally near the intersection of Bandera Road and Cedar Trail, including site plan, structure design, and signage. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved, and it'll be Thursday night before City Council. Okay. Number 8 tonight. Discussion and action on a request by DAV CalLAC Chapter 114 for approval of a conceptual design plan for the placement of a manufactured mobile structure to be utilized as a DAV office located at the rear of Casa Helotes Senior Citizen Center on property addressed as 12070 Leslie Road, including but not limited to site plan, building design, exterior lighting, and signage. And I would ask the city administrator to address this. Get us started.
Thank you, sir. We did review this, and I just wanted to clarify that we are only looking at tonight the site plan, the building design, and the exterior lighting. The packet did not include exterior signage, to my knowledge, and so that would have to come back at a later date.
Okay. Is that? We have, I presume you're representing DAV this evening, sir? Yes, sir. If you wouldn't mind telling us your name and business address?
Good evening. My name is Commander Luis A. Cortez. I'm the commander of Chapter 114. Live at 9940 Spring Beauty, San Antonio, Texas, 78254.
Great. Did you have any remarks or introduction to make about it, or you just take questions from us?
In reference to the signage, we are not requesting any kind of approval for signage because we don't gonna have one out there. More than likely, we will probably use the bulletin board, the one that the Casa de Lourdes has outside. That is by removing the letters to let veterans know that we are there to be able to provide the services. So.
All right, well, let's see if we have some questions. I'd open the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead,
Is
Jeff.
this going to be full-time, 5 days a week? You guys are going to be
No, we.
conducting business, or is it by appointment, or what?
Is by appointment. Approximately, we are looking at blocks of approximately 2 hours per veteran. First, we're gonna start with 2 days a week to see how it goes by appointment. We do not expect more than 6 to 8 veterans through the entire day. Basically, we want to change the way in which the VA claims are done. We're gonna be utilizing the use of technology by using DAV new way of doing the claims through the VA. It's called e-benefits. So it will require for us less time, but be more accurate when it comes to do the claims for the veterans. Probably taking approximately 120 days to get that veteran approval for the VA compensation. Versus the traditional way around the state of Texas is approximately a year to 2 years minimum. We will be the first standing alone building as a service officer chapter, nonprofit, that will provide these services. There's none, as far as I know, there's none in the state of Texas the way we want to do it.
Other questions? Is the building in place at this point?
No, sir.
Yeah. Maybe city administrator could help with this. The fact that this is a manufactured portable structure, with our code, does it seem to be permissible? We don't have a zoned area for that, and there are design standards issues that arise with this type of building. Have there been discussions with the applicant regarding this?
Well, we've had internal discussions about the zoning issue with modular commercial structures. There is a zoning restriction against modular or mobile residential structures in the city, but there is nothing that would prohibit a modular structure as long as it's placed correctly on a building and passes building codes. And of course, that would be reviewed as the structure was placed and it was connected, I assume, through the utilities into Casa Helotes.
Are you planning to connect it utilities-wise and so forth?
Yes, as agree with the board of Casa Helotes, they will allow us to, connect to the water services. We also will utilize the light pole that is available to be able to connect the light. Pretty much that's what we'll be doing after their building gets allocated in there and anchor in the ground and the skirt to make sure that's kind of like, will look just like Casa Helotes material, is a metal building also. And the color will reflect the same as Casa Helotes entirely. Plus, the building are not visible whatsoever from any corners of that where it's going to be located.
Can you flip to the images of I was trying to figure out where on the property it's going to be. I can't tell from the photocopies. So that's the structure there?
That is the structure.
Is there a specific picture you?
Well, I'm trying to orient it to, maybe the sketch where it is in relation to Casa Helotes itself.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Rick, is it basically behind,
It's to the
directly
side,
behind it?
it's to the side and to the rear of Casa Helotes.
Okay.
Yeah, the structure, again, is not visible whatsoever from the outside and surrounding areas, unless they are in the Carnival Festival and they're looking over the fence.
I guess I'd come back to my question, which is my concern, which is that we don't allow modular buildings, portable buildings, mobile homes for residences. The fact that this is very similar to that, though it's for a commercial or nonprofit use, not a residence. Nobody's living there, right?
No,
Right.
nobody will be leaving whatsoever over
And
there.
still,
Hopefully
I
not.
still have the struggle that the fact that this is a type of building that we are trying to move away from within the city. Despite its good use, I mean, nobody, I don't think, would dispute the value of what you're doing here.
No, I fully,
We want to find a way to support it, but be consistent with our design code and our ordinances here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if they take the wheels off and put it on permanent blocks,
the way the structure will be installed, more than likely will be center blocks and skirt all the way around.
Be skirted.
Yeah, the skirt all the way around. So the building actually, when you're standing in front or around, it shouldn't look like just a mobile home with tires. We're trying to make sure that that building look just like Casa Helotes, like an addition of Casa Helotes.
So basically, this is a temporary structure till you build your permanent structure years from now.
In the near future, that will be an objective based on the needs. Right now, locally in Helotes, San Antonio, there's non-profit organization trying to do this for free. There's a lot of veterans and family members of the veterans that have to pay for these services outside to seek for help with lawyers when it comes to very difficult claims. They can go to VA or Frank Tejera to do claims, and nevertheless, they have to wait maybe 3 hours or make weeks of appointments before they even can get help. And that's when the problems arise, when we starting to see the numbers of veterans passing away and nobody's helping them out. We are, the main objective is to also be able to be from 7 to 7, so we are able to accommodate the hours that some of those veterans or spouses are at work. Frank Tejera and VA does not provide those services after 4:30, 5 o'clock. And that's how we're trying to somehow help these individuals and their families.
Other
Mr.
questions,
Chair, I have a
comments?
question
Yeah, go ahead.
for Mr. Rick. Are there other facilities that have this type of similar look and feel with a modular type structure, commercial use here in Helotes?
Okay, there are other modular or pre-manufactured structures that were placed on permanent foundations throughout the city, yes. Now, one that looks like this, not to my knowledge. They tend to have more of the, I guess, hill country aesthetic in the way of cedar siding and things of that sort. But the issue of modular or placed on pier and beam foundation or a full foundation is not the issue. That is not prohibited by our code of ordinances at all. Now, if it was a mobile home residence, yes, it would be. But, and actually, our code does not actually prohibit mobile homes. It can't do that by law. But we just currently have no zoning district that would allow
Well, so
it.
don't we need to create a zoning district in order to consider this? Maybe that's what I'm getting at.
The commission is able to take any action it deems.
Well, we can't create a zone without a public hearing and so forth.
Now,
Hang on just one second. Right, we'd have to go through the process of, following the right protocol to establish the zone where this use is permitted. Wouldn't that be the first step?
Mr. Chair?
You're asking me a question, sir, that I don't have the full answer to, so I would prefer not to answer that until I get direction as to which way the commission
Fair
wants to
enough.
go.
Fair enough. Sir, go ahead.
may I have the floor? Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just also would like to state that we are kind of like in a deadline. We acquired the building. The building is located at Eagle Pass. We acquired this building to federal surplus. It comes from the federal agency. And logically, the building is over there until we get approval or denial from here. Nevertheless, I would like to say, that if we do not get the opportunity to make this mission go through, we are losing that building. The federal surplus will not hold that building after July the 15th. So it will be very impossible for us to continue to drag that building over there.
I understand.
Mr. Chairman?
Ron first, go ahead.
Rick, what is that zoned?
I believe it's B1, but I can pull up the map.
Some of that's industrial.
Actually, you know what, it may be it's probably higher than B1. B1's around the school. Just one second. That's going to be B4.
It's going to be B4.
B4. I believe, unless that little blue.
Blue, yeah.
It's either B3 or B4, but I can clarify. I'll go back and clarify.
Okay. While he's doing that, are there other questions or comments?
I got a question.
Joe, then
What kind of a waiver or action do we need to take
we'll have to ask if it's a recommend or approval. I'm not sure.
to make an exception?
Right. Jason?
I have a question. You mentioned building a skirt around the base of the building to hide the axle and wheel structures. I'm presuming there'll be additional structure for stairs and a ramp.
Yes, sir. As of right now, the building that we acquire has an access for disability. The door is wide. A second door will be built to comply with the marshal. Also, a ramp for disabled will be done, in and out of completely of the building, and also stairs for the regular customers.
It's B4, Chairman.
before, which is a higher, more intensive use.
It is the highest intensive use other than industrial. In industrial, we only have one tract, and that's the propane tract going out Bandera Road North.
And the question, another question was, are we making a recommendation to council on this? Or is this a commission approval item?
It's my opinion that it's a commission approval item unless the commission desires to do something different or punt the ball.
Other questions or motion or,
I would propose a motion if you're ready.
okay, let's take a motion.
I would propose a motion to approve.
Read it out if you would, Joe.
Okay?
We're on number 8.
I propose a motion to approve the DAV TELAC Chapter 114 conceptual design plan for the placement of a manufactured mobile structure to be utilized as a DAV office located to the rear of Casa Helotes Senior Citizen Center on property addressed as 12070 Leslie Road, Helotes, Texas 78023. More particularly described as BACAD property number 239654, including but not limited to site plan, building design, exterior lighting, and that's all.
That's it. Is there a second to the motion? Richard on the second. So is there discussion of the motion? Joe?
I just feel like this is a service badly needed in this area, and we ought to try to do what we can to get it approved.
Richard? Anyone, Ron?
Well, I was going to say that they bring up that there is no sign.
Right, you didn't include sign in that.
Right.
Right,
That's
no
right.
sign. So I would just add that my concerns are not related to the use. I would agree that it would be a valuable service and notable for Helotes to have this. I think the concern, and plus, as you mentioned, it's not directly on the street, et
No,
cetera.
there's no
I think the
visible.
concern becomes a commercial enterprise selling whatever, wants to do something similar, and that city finds itself in a more difficult situation then. I don't think that the use here is at issue. I think everybody supports that. It's finding a way to balance that with the city's responsibilities and the code. So that's where my concern lies. All right, so the motion is to approve the request by DAV TELAC Chapter 114 for a conceptual design plan for the placement of a manufactured mobile structure to be utilized as a DAV office located to the rear of Casa Helotes Senior Citizen Center on property addressed as 12070 Leslie Road, including site plan, building design, and exterior lighting. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you for being here and answering our questions.
Thank you very much, sir.
Good luck to you.
Have a good evening.
We will go to item 9 this evening, which is discussion and action on a request by Country Elegance for approval of a wall creative sign pursuant to municipal code of ordinance. 9 on mine. It's on yours. 2 8s?
We have 2 eights.
All right. It's a discussion and action on a request by Country Elegance for approval of a wall creative sign pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98, zoning, Section 72, subsection G, which is Old Town Helotes Special District sign regulations on property at 14391 Riggs Road. Ask the city administrator to put up the image, if you would, of the sign. Is anyone representing? I don't think there is. And ask if the city administrator has any,
The variance request in this
Thoughts?
is placed on City Council's agenda for Thursday.
right?
is the size of the sign. The maximum wall signage that's allowed in Old Town is 32 square feet. The applicant is proposing 80 square feet. In my opinion, I believe that that wall signage is excessive, and so I'm recommending denial of this variance.
One more time, the existing, I'm sorry, the proposed is 80,
The proposed, what they are requesting is 80 square feet
right?
on the building, which is approximately 50 square feet larger than what would be allowed for that building, which would be 32 square feet maximum.
And if we went with the 25% allowable, that put it up to
20% or 25 is not applicable here because this is an Old Town sign, not, so Chapter 66 does not apply.
Though this is, I'm sorry to sort of linger on this for a moment, but this is a creative request, so doesn't creative avoid the limitations that otherwise would apply?
This is, the original request was a wall sign. They submitted a variance application because they wanted to stick with the 80 square feet as proposed, and the only variance request in Old Town is through the creative sign process. So yes, it is titled under the creative sign review. So there are no restrictions, however, this does still need to go to city council.
Right.
Because it is a variance request.
So when you reference it's far exceeding the allowable, it's far exceeding the allowable wall signage?
That is correct.
Got it, okay. And there's no one here to represent tonight?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Well, comments, discussion? You all have the sign.
Mr. Chairman, I have,
Go ahead, Jeff.
what used to be there? Do you know?
It was, similar business, wasn't it?
Was this the original ice cream place?
Councilman Baez, do you have any idea? No, well, this is on Riggs, correct? This is right near the circle, no?
It's Old Bandera Road.
Yeah, I think it's,
No?
That's what it says.
Says Riggs.
14391 Old Bandera Road.
Mine says 14391 Riggs Road. No,
directly across the street, I think is what that is I'm guessing.
you have, I
That's what
have,
it says right here on the Eagle Ford graphics at the very bottom.
on our agenda, it's got it as Riggs. I thought it was on Riggs,
Look on the, here. it's
on their submission. Old Bandera, you're right.
Bandera Road, Building 1.
City Administrator, could you clarify for us, the agenda lists this property on Riggs Road, the other documentation has it on Old Bandera.
Staff goes by state law, which requires us to publish it with Bear County Appraisal District property addresses, and that property is addressed at 14391 Riggs Road.
Where is it?
It's right on the traffic circle.
It is, all right. So maybe, can you call up, maybe just go into Google Maps for us, because I think we're a little bit. So it's right, it's at the intersection essentially of the two.
This is the old surveying company building, and then it was others, but yes, I can pull it up just.
That's what they want. Is that white stuff back there?
So this is the traffic circle. The building that we're referring to is here.
It actually lists that as Riggs, no, it's on the
Can
corner.
you pull that up on Street View?
Street View, if you would.
Okay, so it's across from the antique shop.
And it previously was a similarly used building. I mean, there was a,
Previously, it was the marketplace, and so that was a retail antique consignment shop.
Can I ask a question?
please,
You said the staff does not recommend approval because it's excessive.
I believe it's a little, I believe that where they're proposing to place the sign makes perfect sense. Just like the sign across at the B-Daddies up here, y'all said that that area made sense for that structure. So I think the signage makes perfect sense. I just think when you look at and actually you can see a different view here of that building.
The old sign is up there?
That is one of the old signs. Yes, this is before even the street improvements were done, so that's probably Westar surveying at that time. No, Solars is next.
Next to
So I just believe that 50 additional square feet is a little excessive. I think the placement makes sense. I just think that it needs to be a little smaller. But that's just our opinion. If the commission is okay with it, God bless.
Well, the question is, how much over the limit should we consider as not being excessive?
Well, I think precedence would allow you to go, even though this is a different chapter, Chapter 98, I think precedence within Chapter 66 would allow you to go approximately 25% above the square footage of the size. Now, again, so that would be
40.
approximately 40 square feet.
So your suggestion then, basically, is that what we have established as what we could exceed on the regular sign should be kind of applied to Old Town, even though Old Town has no limit.
That is my personal opinion, sir, yes.
Yeah, okay,
Because at least
okay.
it's grounded in something.
Okay, okay.
Is,
Thank
sorry,
you.
1 second, Ron. Is that color, the proposed color?
That's what I was
Yeah,
just gonna
that's
ask. I was
another
like,
question.
oh my
That
God.
was my question.
80
Sorry.
square feet of bright blue. Is there any type of,
Though, if you
Such
look
as that.
there, so just to envision it, on the old sign, that is approximately 80 square feet.
That's approximately the size, or according to the property owner, that is approximately the size that the proposed sign would be.
So
Yes.
if we went by, if this had been if this was not Old Town Helotes and we wanted to give them an extra 25% on allowable, it would be roughly 40. It would be half that size, approximately half
That
that
actually
size.
looks a little bit smaller than what's being presented to my eye.
Does it?
Yeah. I mean, certainly they have the corners lopped off, and it looks like if you look at it, what's presented in this elevation, it goes a little
Maybe
further
lower.
towards that first vertical,
Oh, matches the rock.
yeah.
I'll just speak for myself here and say that I'm actually not especially disturbed by the size as much as by the color. So if it was a more appropriate color for Old Town that fit with the surrounding architecture, 80 square feet would be less of a significant issue.
I agree exactly.
Mr. Chairman, is that not one of our deals to keep things in the hill country look? Is that not part of our?
The Hill Country aesthetic, Ron, that's what it's called.
I mean, if the commission believes that the
Getting
blue is
technical on it.
garish and that it needs to be a different color, I think the design criteria within Old Town would allow you to make that decision.
But we do not, as a commission, need to stipulate, we could, if we so desired, simply recommend non-approval and ask them to come back with a more appropriate hill country aesthetic design. We don't have to stipulate it must be brown or beige or whatever. I mean, that's for the applicant to determine as best.
Are there any type of
best for them.
stipulations on that in this creative design?
No, creative is meant to be the most flexible to accommodate unusual requests that make,
If I may, creative is meant to be the most flexible, however, the design criteria within the
Well,
Old Town code still applies to
Absolutely.
creative signs.
Absolutely.
And is there any type of color code in that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this, to me, does not look like what's in the design criteria.
Just remember, we turned down the yellow sign. The yellow sign for the pottery place.
I'd also like to make the comment, Mr. Chair, that I agree with what you say. It's not just about the size, but it is about the look and feel and the color, and this building is prominent. It's right there on the roundabout there. Everyone's gonna see it, and we need to be, and tune, if you will, with what's going on in Old Town. We need to be uniform with our signage, and this really would be taking a precedence if we go a different direction.
This is a recommend item. So maybe we could have a motion. This will be going to council regardless of this, at the end of this process, but this is a recommend item.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Please.
Make a motion to not recommend approval, requested by Country Elegance of a wall creative sign pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98 zoning, Section 9872, Old Town Helotes Special District, subsection G, sign regulations on property addressed as 14391 Riggs Road, Helotes, Texas 78023.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, I
Second.
second. Okay.
Only one. Joe, go Joe.
It doesn't matter.
Seconds.
So the motion is to recommend disapproval, to not recommend approval of the request by Country Elegance for a wall or creative sign pursuant to 9872G, Old Town Helotes Special District sign regulations on property at 14391 Riggs Road. Any further discussion of the motion?
I personally, I believe that what the administrator said should be applied. We need to have some basis for making the decision. And
Jeff?
Same as what we discussed.
Great.
Size, not as much as color.
Okay. All in favor of the motion to recommend disapproval, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. This will be in front of City Council in two days. All right, item 10 tonight. Discussion and action on a request by Pulte Homes for approval of a residential subdivision entry sign pursuant to Chapter 66, Section 43, residential subdivision entry signs for Silver Canyon subdivision on property located generally near the intersection of Galm and Mill Park Roads. Ask the city administrator to introduce this. I'm gathering you're here for this.
Yes, Mr. Milliken is the
Really
unlucky
like
representative
signs.
for this item. This is another one of those signs that went up what seemed to be overnight. I'm not saying that they intended to do anything illegally overnight. I'm just saying it caught us by surprise. It's been installed and in place. The problem with this sign, when we reviewed it, according to the current Code of Ordinances regulating residential subdivision entry signs, is that the sign is too big. It is supposed to not be any larger than 145 square feet, and the way that we interpret, I believe you were part of the MI Homes discussion, so you know that we interpret the sign code to include the frame, essentially everything, not just the sign area, okay? So it can't be any larger than 145 square feet, and this, if you include what they're referring to as the sign wall plus the sign panel, is 430 square feet. In staff's review, it is too tall as well. It can be no taller than 8 feet. The height of this is 10 foot 6 inches. Also in our review, if you'll notice, I believe that there are three flags that are on top of the structure. Our flag, the only applicable section that we could see would be the items addressing flags within the sign code, which is 66-52, subsection C. That is included on the dais for your review. And that allows only one flagpole for a corporation or a business. So in my opinion, this would have too many signs for this proposed sign, or sign that's actually been installed. So to summarize, it's too big, it's too tall, and it has too many flags.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the show?
It's great. To be honest with you, the aesthetic of the sign doesn't bother me at all. It's just very large.
All right. So obviously, we're going to have some questions coming up. And you just put your name and address on the record.
My name is Derek Milliken. I'm the manager of land development for Pulte Homes.
Great. Thank you for joining us. So how come this is, I mean, just the obvious question at the outset is, build it without approval seems a bit of a stretch.
I guess the first question I had when I got to Pulte, I was at MI previously, and we've had trails of Helotes discussions and side setbacks and all that. I've been with Pulte about a month, and so the first question I had was, are we inside the city limits, and what's the requirement for signs that may or may not be inside the city limits? So I tried to figure out what was going on, and to tell the truth is, Pulte was not aware that it had to submit for a sign permit for this entry monument.
Appreciate your honesty.
Well,
Tough position.
And
to
there's
be in.
actually 5 flags instead of 3, I'm sorry. I will say that one of the reasons that Pulte may have not have been aware is because of litigation that we had with Pulte Homes of Texas, but that was prior to us annexing Brycewood. And so now, once we annexed Brycewood, that property then became within our ETJ, the mile. And so I suspect that's why we haven't received a lawsuit on this yet from y'all. So I have a feeling that had something to do with this. They believe that they were outside the regulatory area of the city of Helotes, but I don't believe that they knew that we had annexed Brycewood prior to the creation of this sign.
that's our understanding.
Okay.
Well, I mean, in a way, that's neither here nor there for this commission, right? I mean, we have a really large sign that's already been built, so we obviously have issues with this. This is obviously a recommend to council item. I mean, we can talk about it, we can fulminate about it, but we've got a built sign. At the end of the day, council can ask them to remove it, can ask them to do any number of things, but from our perspective, I think that just by code, we've got this is an outlier in a lot of different ways.
And I did want to clarify one more thing. If you look at the sign, there's actually, we just recently went through this at the council level with regard to the discussion on signs. This sign that I am looking at, or staff is looking at, is only the portion that says Silver Canyon. It's probably easier by,
Including that little,
Bring it up.
including that dip down, that little
Now,
cutout.
Mr. Chairman,
Hang on a second, let him finish this.
okay, where
There.
am I? I would only be looking at this portion of the sign,
the center,
the center. These portions are not connected to the sign.
Right.
I don't know if there's a common foundation wall or anything, but through some discussions at the council level, because they're not connected, they wouldn't necessarily be in play for this discussion.
Right.
Also, on both sides of this, they actually become part more of the fence structure, if you will,
Yeah.
that's containing the property. And so these don't necessarily bother me.
So
per se,
use your pointer to draw around the 430 square feet.
but This portion.
Right. So we're not talking, and this goes back similarly to Brycewood and the discussion about what is and what isn't a sign. We're talking just about the structure that contains Silver Canyon.
Yes.
That was my interpretation as well, because this is in a sense, detached structure. I considered this as one structure, so when I say in the application it's 31 feet by 10.5 feet tall,
You're talking
that's
about-
what it is.
Yeah, that's one.
So this is not included, this is not included. There's actually there's a small little metal decorative panel that connects the two, but it's really just a decoration. It has no structural value. But when I said the sign panel itself was 28 feet by 3.5 feet, that's 90 some odd square feet. I did not include that because the geometry was getting very difficult for me. So I just considered that. So if you looked at the silver by itself, without considering any of that exposed area, I'm under 140 square feet. I'm under 100 square feet. I think it's 98. So
Without the
it's
base.
neither here nor there. Correct.
so you're saying, yeah, you did not include the base, only the,
I do have one question, because this is obviously, if I may, Chair,
Go ahead, Rick.
this is obviously going to council. and we have 2 council members here. So have y'all had internal discussions about anything related to this sign? Any modifications y'all be willing to make? Any concessions at this point? Or is it just presenting this, and this is what y'all want at this point?
This is what we'd like. We'd like to not make any modifications at all, but in the next 2 days, we can circle internally and figure out.
I certainly think that it would be appropriate for you to do so, just as a recommendation. The other thing that I would, and I'm not speaking for council here, but the other thing that if this had come before the commission and council, I would, even if it was smaller, I likely would have at a staff level recommended denial of the silver component. So I don't know if there's something that y'all can do to mitigate that silver, but to me, that's not the hill country aesthetic that we would be going for. But those are just my 2 cents. I don't know if council would have a different perspective.
It's Silver Canyon. You get it? You understand that, right?
What is that silver material? Or is it, or you know, it's not important?
Tell the truth, I don't know.
Okay, go ahead.
It's
I mean,
some brushed metal of some sort.
I'm making light of it a little bit, but I mean, really,
It's an expensive problem.
it, from sitting up here, it's absolutely ridiculous. And to hear that Pulte wasn't sure where they were and they didn't know that the sign, I mean, representing the interest of the city, that's just, I believe that's unacceptable, and I'm speaking that for myself, and that's not your fault, and I know that. But here we are, we're presented with this that's built. and-
Does the timing matter as,
Anybody else want to comment? I mean, we will ultimately need a motion to recommend to council what we will recommend,
Right.
but this
Mr.
will
Chairman?
appropriately be a council decision.
Have any homes been built in here?
in that community, probably 400?
So they didn't get building permits from Helotes?
They're not required to get building
Not for
permits.
these.
And so I think that was sort of the logic. If there's no building permit for the home, why would the sign also require a permit?
The sign said.
If,
Good point.
So, Jason, did you have something? I'm sorry.
Sort of a 1,000-foot question, but I mean, how do we, has the city had any discussions about how to communicate that out? I mean, if they don't go for a building permit process, then I can understand why they would be, not understand that they would need to get approvals for that.
Well, I would disagree with, not disagree, that's too strong of a word, but I would caution that most builders out there know, particularly in San Antonio's ETJ, that sign permits are required for San Antonio's ETJ, particularly for residences and commercial. So am I incorrect about that? I know that their sign code applies to their ETJ. So we have ETJ maps, and larger corporations like this should have been aware, and I think they're on notice just as an industry standard that some communities regulate signage within their ETJs, and that is a proven fact that cities are allowed to do that, particularly in addressing Pulte homes. So I don't think it's necessary for us to communicate it, because other than what we have on our code of ordinances that says it specifically applies to the extraterritorial jurisdiction. So I'm not disagreeing with you, sir. I'm just saying that in companies that are developing these types of projects, take Pulte out of the picture. I think that it's sort of industry knowledge that they should look into the signage criteria as to whether it does or does not apply.
Especially before they build it. They should at least check it out.
Joe?
I don't think that accepting signs this far out of the limits because it's already done is a good idea.
Say that one more time?
I don't think accepting signs that are outside of the limits of what we have established, just because it's already done, because other people are gonna pick it up, and
Well,
I think
we can craft a motion to that effect.
yeah.
But again, it's good, appropriately, this is a decision for city council to make. And
right,
as you recall, though we're not doing it this month, we did start a discussion about 6643 last month. And I hope we will resume that, about addressing well, more than one issue, I guess, with residential entry signs that hopefully can, bear on this type of sign going forward.
Council has actually informally directed that the commission review the entire sign code again.
Oh, really?
So we will be bringing back the entire sign code.
Guys.
In addition to the 6643 residential portion.
You're off for this, all right?
In addition, I believe that little piece between those outside, I believe that would be counted as a part of that sign if we were to
Well,
accept it.
no, I mean, with the last sign that went up, the residential sign, it was not considered part of it. But that's sort of a lesser issue here, I think.
Yeah.
I would think, the easiest fix for council to consider, of course, is to just leave it as it is and take down the flags. But there's not a whole lot else that this commission can do other than make our recommendation and make it known to council what,
And paint
what
the
our
silver
position is.
sign red, right?
one more time?
And paint the silver sign red.
Yeah, well, we don't want to do that.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment. My thought is, whether they knew they were in Helotes or not, I don't think that's the point here. We can't assume anything. What we know is the here and now. I know we want to support our businesses here in town, but I do believe that this doesn't meet code, and we need it to meet code. So my suggestion is that the commission would recommend to council that we have the builder modify or remove the signage completely to meet code, is what I suggest. Because, yes, it does have a great look and feel, but it's not within the city code that we have.
So what we have before us is this on their agenda already? Right, so we can make a recommendation to deny the entry sign, if that's the sense. Deny this, we don't have to recommend a particular course of action. We can deny what's been presented to us. Might be the most straightforward way. I'd like to invite a motion at this point. Mr. Milliken, thank you for chatting with us.
I have one more.
Yeah, go ahead, real quick.
Is this lit?
It's my
All right, will this be lit?
It's not currently lit.
I saw it was checked to be lit, so.
It's not currently lit. I wanted to leave it open in the sense that we don't know if we're going to. As you know, most of our development is well behind there. The last unit we'll be building will be up near the sign, backing up to the sign. That's when you'll get your permanent utilities like your electric and your water irrigation meter irrigation system. Right now, there's no irrigation system either. Those are just native type drought tolerant plants.
You're aware of the light code, light regulations for the city?
We will certainly be aware of that.
Yeah. All right, I'd like to invite a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion. Motion to deny this request.
Read it out if you would.
Yes, sir. To deny the request by Pulte Homes of Texas for approval of a residential subdivision entry sign pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinance, Chapter 66 Signs, Section 66-43, residential subdivision entry signs for Silver Canyon subdivision on property located generally near the intersection of Gulm and Mill Park Roads, more particularly described as BCAD property ID number 1247996.
There's a second.
I'll second.
Further discussion, Mario or Jeff?
I'd just like to state as everybody else did, I just think they need to stop running over us.
Any other discussion? So the motion is to recommend to council disapproval of the request by Pulte Homes for the residential subdivision entry sign pursuant to Chapter 66, Section 43, residential subdivision entry signs for Silver Canyon subdivision located on property located generally near the intersection of Gulm and Mill Park Roads. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. It'll be before City Council on June the 8th. And that brings us to the conclusion of our agenda. No, take that back. Well,
about an important
we
deal
have
about
a
July 4th.
rescheduling to do here. We have our next meeting falling on Independence Day, so I guess the first question to the city administrator is it feasible to simply cancel it and go till August, or will we need, in your view, to have an interim meeting?
I really don't believe that it's going to be feasible to cancel that meeting. I do believe that the commission needs to reschedule, because that's a very long time not to have applications go before the approving authority.
Sure. I would like to ask if we can direct the city secretary to poll the commission on available dates.
It's fine.
And if I could just throw out some dates here, and this is really just glancing at the calendar, I would throw out, July 4th is on a what?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, obviously.
Why not go to the following Tuesday?
How about the 5th? The 5th and the 6th. Now we have to, when does court meet?
On Tuesdays.
Tuesday, so we're clear in court. The 6th is not a council day, right? So the 5th or the 6th, which is a Wednesday or a Thursday,
Mr. Chair, I agree with you. Both those dates would work perfect for me.
does that work for everybody that they know of? I'm gonna ask the city secretary to confirm with everybody, and we'll get it, make sure we get a date that we can ensure everybody's there. So if you can convey to her as well, either the 5th or the 6th, that's Wednesday or Thursday. Give everybody a chance to double check their calendar. And then the meeting after that will be the 1st of August, so if we're in that first week of July, we'll be, that'll be good. All right. Now we're at the conclusion of our agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Ron,
may I make a motion to adjourn?
is there a second to adjourn?
Second it.
All in favor, please signal aye.
Aye.
And we stand adjourned at 8:15.